In this video, we're watching the transformation of an old, abandoned boat, over 100 years old, into a fully restored, legendary yacht, unlike anything you've ever seen before. This isn't just going to be some regular boat. It's being built to handle races, long ocean voyages, and even the wildest adventures out at sea. The guy behind all this is Leo. He's loved the ocean his whole life and has always been obsessed with sailing and boats. But his passion didn't stop at riding them or sailing around. Turns out he's incredibly talented when it comes to building boats too. His hands are pure craftsmanship. As the video goes on, you'll realize this guy is the real deal. He's in love with wood and all the tiny details that come together to build a yacht he truly believes in. But what really sets him apart is his insane sense of adventure, the kind that pushed him to buy a boat that was literally falling apart. Even the scrap dealer who'd seen it sitting there for years didn't want anything to do with it. But Leo did. And get this, he bought it for just $1. That's when he made the call to turn it into a one-of-a-kind yacht. A crazy move for sure, but one that's totally worth the risk. So now, the big question is, can he really turn this pile of old wood into a fully functional yacht? This yacht is called Tally-Ho, and it was originally built back in 1910. That makes it over 100 years old, literally older than some countries around today. So yeah, its design is basically a piece of living history. But over time, things went downhill fast. The wood completely deteriorated and became pretty much useless. Still, back in its prime, this yacht was a real champion, winning major awards in some of the biggest sailing races in the world. It was absolutely dominating. Of course, nothing lasts forever. Once it fell into bad shape, the yacht was abandoned for a long time. But Leo decided it was time to bring that lost glory back and restore the value that had been left to rot. When he went to check it out for the first time, the yacht was being held up by long wooden supports. That's because yachts aren't designed to sit on land. If you leave one unsupported, it'll tip over immediately and end up in even worse condition. Those wooden beams also add extra safety during the restoration. Whether he's working inside the boat or replacing planks on the outside, the yacht has to stay completely stable so nobody gets seriously hurt. They also help prevent cracks and warping in the structure, especially since the yacht was already in rough shape. The wood was rotting, and most of the hull planks had been destroyed by saltwater and humidity. The metal and nails were eaten away by rust. And no, this isn't a horror movie. This is the yacht's real condition. If you look closely, you'll spot some seriously dangerous cracks in the hull, which is the main structure holding the yacht from underneath. On top of that, there were huge holes everywhere. The cabin was completely wrecked on the inside, the wood was infested, the foundation was broken, and the engine totally outdated and completely dead. In this situation, most people would have given up, packed their stuff, and walked away without a second thought. But Leo chose to do the exact opposite. The first thing he did was move the yacht to a much bigger workspace, somewhere he could work freely without restrictions. Since this was a long-term project that involved heavy labor, they installed brand new wooden supports, stronger and more solid than the old ones. Then, they started removing the damaged wood from the very first layer, replacing it with completely new material and rebuilding the foundation from the ground up. And sure enough, the new temper arrived. 2 long, incredibly thick pieces of wood. You could tell right away they were built to last. But even then, they weren't planning to keep them in that form. The plan was to fuse the 2 pieces together to create the yacht's keel, the bottom of the boat, and the main structural backbone everything rests on. So anytime you hear the word keel, just know this is the part we're talking about. Using a saw, they carved out a large section of the wood and carefully fitted the second piece into it. All of it was bonded using marine-grade adhesive, a ridiculously strong glue built to withstand water and salt, locking the wood together like it's a single block of stone. Once the new keel was ready, they removed the old one, which had completely collapsed, and tossed it straight into the trash without hesitation. Then they installed the brand new keel they had just finished shaping and perfecting. After installing the new keel, they placed wooden blocks underneath it to lift it off the group and used a small jack to fine-tune its position. Once it was fully secured and rock solid, they moved on to the wooden planks along the sides. All of those side planks were removed because there was no way they could be reused. Next, they brought in these massive wooden beams to serve as the yacht's new foundation and main support pillars. After cutting and shaping each piece with a saw, they began installing them one by one, slowly and carefully, making sure every part landed exactly where it belonged. These beams were insanely heavy, so teamwork was the only way to get them into place safely. Some sections were bonded using marine-grade adhesive, while others were secured with enormous bolts. Honestly, they're probably some of the biggest bolts you'll ever see. At this point, it was clear the yacht needed extremely strong, durable wood. This wasn't a project where you could just grab ready-made planks from a store and call it a day. That's why they decided everything had to be handcrafted, even the wooden planks themselves. To make sure there were no hidden flaws, they chose one of the toughest woods out there, oak, known for its incredible resistance to water and salt, basically one of nature's strongest materials. They left the bark on the outside of the tree trunk to protect the wood inside from drying out or cracking before they started cutting it. Once the logs were brought in, they kept them under a constant water spray to stop the wood from drying too fast and to preserve its strength and quality. On top of that, they treated the wood with a preservative to protect it from insects and rot, things that usually love to move into timber like this. After that, they started slicing the logs into wooden planks and moving them to another area to continue working on them. And this is where the real craftsmanship kicked in. The planks that came out of this process were seriously impressive. These guys are true professionals. They shaped every piece by hand because the yacht needed very specific sizes and forms. This method gave them full control, perfect quality, perfect dimensions. It also allowed them to bend and shape the wood to match the exact curves of the yacht's sides. And those curves aren't just for looks. They help the yacht cut through the waves smoothly, reducing water resistance. That's why, out on the ocean, this yacht moves just like a fish. And that efficiency saves a huge amount of energy, whether the yacht is powered by sails or by an engine. At this stage, they started removing any parts that were damaged and no longer usable on the yacht. Then they brought in a massive, thick wooden plank and cut a section out of it using a saw. Once the cutting was done, they carefully smoothed and sanded the surface until it was perfectly clean and even, making sure it wouldn't cause injuries or allow water to collect inside any cracks. After installing the plank, the edges had to be trimmed and leveled so everything lined up perfectly with the surrounding boards. At this point, all the work was focused on building the main foundation that sits directly on top of the keel. This base runs the entire length of the yacht, and obviously, no single tree grows that long, so it had to be constructed from multiple sections. Each piece was cut, shaped, and adjusted so that when they came together, they formed one solid structure. Once everything was ready, they moved the pieces onto the yacht and bonded them together using marine-grade adhesive and bolts, turning them into a single, rigid unit. At this point, all the core foundations of the yacht were finally in place, the keel and the structural bases that support the sides. This was a massive milestone, seriously impressive work. After that, they moved on to shaping the bow of the yacht, giving it that smooth, curved profile. They removed all the excess material that wasn't needed anymore. Naturally, once the cutting was done, the surface was rough with sharp edges everywhere. So they sanded it down thoroughly until it became smooth, clean, and refined. Along the bottom of the keel, they cut a series of openings running the entire length of the yacht, evenly spaced and carefully measured. These openings work like small drainage channels beneath the yacht's flooring. So if any water gets inside, from rain or sea spray, it won't just sit there and slowly destroy the wood. Instead, the water flows from one channel to the next until it reaches the lowest point of the boat where a pump removes it and pushes it back out. Once the first layer of the keel was finished, everything started moving much faster and smoother. They began removing a large section from the front of the yacht because the bow needs to be sharp to cut cleanly through the water. After stripping that layer away, they sanded the wood thoroughly until it became perfectly smooth. They repeated this process across the entire foundation of the yacht, peeling, cleaning, and prepping the surface until it was fully ready. This step was absolutely critical. New planks can only be bonded properly to a solid, flat surface, because sometimes wood looks fine on the outside, but once you open it up, you find cracks or internal rot hiding underneath. That's why they inspected everything carefully, making sure no hidden damage slipped through. These guys clearly know what they're doing. There's no cutting corners here. And since the yacht is so long, no single piece of wood could ever cover it on its own. So, multiple planks had to be merged together to form one continuous structure. That's why they started merging the wooden planks together, and honestly, their skill level here is impressive. Each plank was cut and adjusted with precision so it could fit perfectly against the next, without leaving any gaps. After that, they installed the side beam that holds all the yacht's ribs together. This beam is absolutely critical because it works like a spine running along the side of the boat. It connects all the ribs, keeps the side from shaking or bending, and also serves as the foundation for the deck that will be added later. Basically, it supports the crossbeams that carry the entire deck. This beam also preserves the strong curve along the yacht sides. Without it, the hull could lose its shape or bow outward over time. This beam runs from the very front of the yacht all the way to the back, giving the entire structure solid, unified strength. That's why it's one of the most important and versatile components in the whole build. Honestly, this is expert level craftsmanship. After that stage, they needed even more wood, so they went out and brought in fresh tree logs to cut, shape, and prepare the best pieces possible. They also designed the planks with very specific shapes, making sure they would fit together and match the hull perfectly as the build continued step by step. This is where hand tools came into play, chisels and wooden mallets. These tools allow them to remove tiny sections with extreme precision without ruining the entire plank. Because one small mistake could mean losing hours of hard work and having to start over from scratch. On top of that, hand tools can reach tight corners that large machines simply can't access. After all the precision work was done, they moved on to leveling the yacht's ribs, making sure every single one sat at the exact same height. That way, when the outer planks were installed later, there would be no bumps, no gaps, and no weak spots. Once the ribs were perfectly aligned, they installed the deck pillars, keeping even spacing between them to distribute the load correctly. After that, they laid down the interior planks, then moved outside to install the planks at the rear. These rear planks were absolutely critical. They sealed the hull from the back and gave the structure its final strength. Just like he paid close attention to every detail at the front of the yacht, he worked with even more precision at the stern. That's because this area is essential for mounting the runner and steering equipment. It also ties the sides back into the keel, adding serious structural rigidity to the entire hull. After that, they decided to make the rear of the yacht wide instead of pointed, because this design adds extra strength and structural support. Once the exterior shape was finished, they moved on to installing the interior components, which had already been painted white to give the inside a clean, open feel, and make the space feel larger. They also had a metal furnace on site, which they later used to cast custom metal parts, like the weight installed beneath the keel that helps stabilize the yacht in the water. They even used it to create the bases for the masts. In the middle of all that work, they discovered a hidden piece of craftsmanship buried inside a box filled with dirt. As always, the good stuff tends to stay hidden. They cleaned it up, sanded it down, and it turned into something truly beautiful. After that, they installed metal connectors to join rib to rib or secure the ribs to the main beam. Those metal connectors were absolutely essential. Wood on its own can crack or weaken over time, especially under heavy stress. The metal acts like an extra backbone in high-pressure areas, particularly when powerful waves slam against the yacht's hull. This way, the force is shared between the wood and the metal, with each material carrying part of the load. These connectors also tied the keel to the ribs and to the transom at the back. Without them, the structure could have slowly fallen apart over time. Because the goal wasn't just to fix the yacht, they wanted it to last another 100 years. After that, they installed a large wooden plank along the outside of the hull and bonded it securely using marine-grade adhesive. On top of that, they added the rest of the planks, locking everything in place with glue and nails. They worked their way along both sides of the yacht, one section at a time, until the job was done. And that's when the yacht's true shape finally started to reveal itself. Next came the caulking stage. They packed special fibers into the gaps between the wooden planks and pressed them in using a small metal tool. This step is absolutely critical because it's what makes the hull watertight. Caulking prevents water from leaking between the planks, so you don't end up sitting inside the yacht with water creeping up from underneath. It also allows the wood to move slightly with waves and changing weather. Those fibers absorb the movement without tearing or causing cracks. After that, they coated the wood with a protective treatment. If bare wood is left exposed, it'll soak up seawater, rot, or start swelling over time. The coating creates a sealed barrier that keeps water out of the pores. It also protects the wood from the sun, which can fade its color and weaken the material over time, especially in harsh marine environments. Wood is always vulnerable to rot and fungal damage. That's why this protective paint prevents those organisms from taking hold, while also giving the yacht a clean, premium finish. Next, they installed wooden plugs along the outer hull to seal the bolt holes and keep water from getting inside. Once the plugs were locked in place, they trimmed the excess and sanded the entire side until it was perfectly smooth. After that came the primer coat, a clean layer of light, followed by the final colors. The upper section stayed white, the lower hull was painted a bold orange, and a precise blue stripe was carefully laid between them. The final look was sleek, elegant, and absolutely stunning. Once the yacht could finally support itself, it was time to remove the support beams holding it up. That part was tense. The road was narrow, and one wrong move could have damaged everything they worked so hard to build. But they made it through safely, reached a wider road, and continued the final stages without any issues. In the end, they installed the masts, the rigging, the engine, and every last detail, until finally the moment they had been waiting for. They launched the yacht into the sea, raised the sails, and set off into open water. This journey teaches us something powerful. Nothing is impossible. The most important step is simply starting, having the courage to take that first move. If you truly believe in a dream and put in the work, one day you'll see it standing right in front of you, just like this yacht. If you enjoyed the video, leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you're not subscribed yet, hit subscribe and join us.